All right, let's get this kicked off. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Mountain Talk. My name is Bryce Neff. I am the Associate Director of College Affinity and Faculty Engagement at Lehigh University with the Alumni Relations Department. Jennifer Cunningham, our normal host, is at another event with the president of the university, so she is unable to attend today. So I will be your host for today's Mountain Talk. And today we're going to be talking about virtual reality learning experiences for non-formal education with Dr. Alec Bodzin. So Dr. Bodzin is a professor in the Teaching, Learning, and Technology program within Lehigh's College of Education. He's a core faculty member of the Lehigh Environmental Initiative, and some of his research interests involve the design of immersive virtual reality learning environments. Today, Dr. Bodzin will be discussing 3 different VR experiences allowing students to learn about certain environmental impacts on the Lehigh Valley and elsewhere, how those learning models differ from one another, and some of the findings of his research. So with that in mind, we're going to pass the floor to Dr. Bodzin, and we're going to learn more about the research and the tools that he's been using in his work. So Dr. Bodzin, go ahead and take us away.
Thanks, Bryce, and thanks everybody for coming today for this Mountain Talk presentation. I'm quite honored to be here to share the work our group at Lehigh University has been doing. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll see these logos of our Environmental Literacy and Inquiry Group. We have a very extensive curriculum website. If you've never seen it, just Google it, Lehigh Eli. And also, I'm going to highlight today the work of our group, which is the Lehigh River Immersive Learning. And that's kind of punny because we are place-based, which I will be showing you some of our learning activities. So we're focused on the Lehigh River watershed. And about us, it's not just me. We have a whole large team of folks working on these projects that I'm happy to share with you. Including faculty from our TLT program, Dr. Tom Hammond, Dr. Zalong Pan, and Dr. David Anastasio from the Earth Environmental Science program here at Lehigh. In addition, everything I'm going to show you is really a large effort with many teams of graduate students out of our college that have been working on the projects. In addition to Lehigh undergraduate students, we have teams from our computer science and engineering capstone students that have been working with us. Different teams are with us for a year at a time for like the last 4 years now, I believe. And also we have students from the Mountaintop program with the Lehigh Valley Social Impact Fellowship. So I want to acknowledge the generous support from Lehigh's Office of Creative Inquiry, because really without their support, the work that we do, it would take a lot longer and be much more difficult to do. And I also want to acknowledge a small faculty research grant that we received just this past year from Lehigh to purchase some Oculus 2 Quest headsets to help with our development work. And also, I just have to acknowledge the most important component of our group is our non-formal education partners. They work with us every step of the way, from conceptualizing to iterative design, development, and testing of all our VR learning experiences. And that includes the Lehigh Gap Nature Center, the Nurture Nature Center, the Delaware and Lehigh, or it's known as the DNL, Heritage Corridor, the National Canal Museum, and Jacobsburg Environmental Education Center. So what we do, well, we're a research-based group. We're very interested in people learning with immersive VR. And so we do a lot of design, development, implementation, research studies, especially during prototype testing. This involves a lot of usability testing to make sure people can actually work with the materials. If we do headset testing so they don't get motion sickness. Part of our research, we're developing different models for engagement and learning. These are some of the constructs that we're interested in seeing how people are engaged in their sense of immersion and presence, and how do they learn and what makes them learn. The things I'm going to show you today are in different stages of development. We currently have, I think, 5, maybe 6 projects now in different stages of development. They take a long time, sometimes 4 or 5 years from the time of we start rolling up our sleeves building things to the time we get our first field tests going. And today's focus is this non-formal education. We've tried to design things so that it could be used both in formal learning contexts. Say a teacher wants to use this in a classroom, or a university faculty member somewhere wants to use this, or you can put this online in a website, what's called a WebGL version, and anybody informally can visit a website and engage with these materials. And we also have this thing we call ageless design, where we want to make sure uh, adolescents can use this stuff in addition to like my 80-year-old mother, that she'd be able to use the learning materials. So two of the three learning activities I'm going to highlight today are really focused on the Lehigh River watershed, and we have this term we call place-based education with VR. And why? Well, there's a lot of places that the physical location could be inaccessible or dangerous. And if you think about accessibility, sometimes people can't get to places because there's no bus transportation, or if a school's trying to plan a field trip, there's transportation costs involved, or very logistics planning. But within VR, it's a really unique environment. We use the Unity platform for development. If you're not familiar with the VR field, Unity, and the second platform is Unreal. That's where most development takes place. And you can create interactive things within these environments, creating a feel of realism, promote learner autonomy. You can customize the environment in various ways. In fact, if you can dream it up in your head, you can pretty much make it happen in a Unity environment. And you can embed, as I'll show you in a few minutes here, authentic imagery, content, narration, video, even data. And the last thing I want to point out that's on the slide is place-based education with VR can serve nicely for a foundation for game scenarios and also narratives. We know from research that storylines engage people, and people get emotional connections to stories, and that also helps them to engage and learn. So what I'm going to show you first here is a few slides from the Lehigh Gap Story. This was our second project we ever started working on. And where it is right now, we have a operating desktop VR version on our website. You can play a web-based version of this. And what this is a narrative-based virtual field trip. And what it does is it kind of tells the story of the Lehigh Gap. And if you're not familiar with the Lehigh Gap, it's about 25 miles as the crow flies from Lehigh's campus. It's on the top of the Kittatinny Ridge. And if you look at the Kittatinny Ridge, we also call it Blue Mountain, there's a gap where the river has carved out. And that's what you see in the slides here in the upper left corner. And this was a very nice, pristine environment. This area was a major historical transportation corridor during the Industrial Revolution. And a man named Stephen Palmer decided this would be a great place to put a zinc smelting factory, because you could get coal from the Poconos and then from the north, and then the rail lines came in the early 1900s to transport zinc ore from Friedensville. And that's what they did. And they built the zinc smelting plant. And I just want to remind people, in the early 1900s, prior to 1970, we didn't have environmental regulations. So there were pollution with nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxides that got in the atmosphere, created acid rain, and basically denuded the mountain. Now, I do want to say that this company, if you know the history a little bit, this was a great company, and whatever technology to reduce environmental pollution was available at that time, this company actually employed that at their factory. Well, all these heavy metals got into the soil. They've contaminated the groundwater. They were getting into Lehigh River. And a group of citizens had this really crazy idea in the 1990s to work with the EPA Superfund site to plant a series of warm season grasses to trap the heavy metals into the soil, and turn this into a nature center where people can go and visit. And that's what this experience tells the story of. And this is one of the first screenshots of when you enter the experience, and you'll see a checklist up on the right, and there's this avatar bird named Brownie. And she narrates the story about her ancestors who lived in this area. And when somebody goes into these, there's basically taking a virtual hike across a series of photospheres. So for a photosphere, if you can imagine an area, you're in a virtual environment, and if you can look, 360 degrees around you, up and down, and you can move within this environment and do things and interact with different objects. That's kind of what the experience is like. And so in this case, you click on Brownie. Brownie narrates the story to you. Then you look at this information sign. You can zoom in and look at the images larger on that, enhance the text if you have aging eyes like myself that requires reading glasses. And then we're done. Brownie says, hey, come over here, click the green arrow, follow me. This photosphere has these rocks in it, and you could actually pick up these rocks, zoom in, zoom out, and learn the type of rocks that you would actually encounter if you were taking a real hike there. In this photosphere, you learn about the historical, why this was an important transportation corridor, and there's historical imagery about, for example, this bridge right here that was built in 1911 to 1912. This is one of the interactive signs that you can click on, and then there's magnifying glasses that enhance the, bring the image to be larger, and also text larger too to read. This photosphere talks about the zinc smelting plant and the pollution that it emitted. And then there's this acid rain animation that you experience during this VR narrative, where you have these trees and it starts raining, and basically all the leaves fall off, and learn about acid rain. And then the last photosphere talks about how it denuded the mountain, and then warm season grasses were planted, and today you've already got primary succession happening. So in a nutshell, that's the Lehigh Gap Story. We ran a study not too long ago, this was about last year, in 3 different public outreach settings, and this was the desktop version. So when people did this, they either did it online, that's the web version, or they did it on a computer, and we had computers at the Lehigh Gap Nature Center Festival that they do. They just migration festival every year, and there's also we had schools, after school kids from a homework club come. And what we found in this study was that we had high levels of engagement, presence, and immersion. And what that means is, they didn't have a headset on. And I will say, when you have a headset on, it is a more immersive experience. But our results had said that this was pretty high in terms of the immersion, presence, and engagement they experienced. And we didn't see any differences across the constructs that you see on this diagram for engagement, immersion, and presence across genders, which is good, because we want to make sure our work is not biased to favor males over females or females over males. The main finding here, though, is that what happens from when we do our analysis is that presence, the sense of actually physically being there, led to engagement, and this also led to effective learning. And then the design features specific in terms of the narrative storyline and the guidance and feedback that the avatar provides you as you go through this experience promotes engagement, and also promoted perceptions of learning, both actual learning and effective learning. All right, so I'm going to shift gears. Again, this is a lightning talk, and I'm going to try to show a lot of things fairly quickly here. So to give you a taste of some of the stuff we do. So this is Watershed Explorers, and this is what we call gameful exploration. And the narrative context is that you've been hired by the DNL, that's the Delaware and Lehigh National Historical Corridor, to propose a top 3 location plan for promoting tourism along the Lehigh River. And you go on this kayak expedition with these avatars to 9 different locations in the watershed. So you can make these stops off the river. And then there's photospheres in there too, with all kinds of media elements in there that you interact with. And we did conduct a desktop VR prototype efficacy study summer 2021 with middle school age learners that were in a summer school. And after I show you a 2-minute brief overview video, I'll talk to you a little bit about that study in a second here. So enjoy this brief video.
Meet Lenny, Mira, Lance, and Della Demille. Join them in a kayak adventure down the Lehigh River to explore the Lehigh River watershed's rich environment and history. In this game, the DNL National Canal Museum hired you to make a recommendation to strategically improve community engagement and tourism along the Lehigh River. the Watershed Explorers will support you throughout this journey. Della coordinates the team and manages transportation. Lenny will ensure your safety and fun while navigating the waters of the Lehigh River. Nira describes the environmental features of each visited location. Lance shares his wisdom and anecdotes of the Lehigh Valley. You're equipped with mobile technology that automatically collects data and summarizes your observations while you enjoy the scenery of each location you visit. Whenever you need, your Explorer tools can be accessed with the Progress menu. There you will find Della informs with the useful information of your expedition. The journal keeps notes of what each Watershed Explorer tells you. A gallery that saves visual information you find along the way. And a glossary to explain and illustrate the meaning of some specific terms. You can enjoy this adventure in English or Spanish, and rest assured that the Watershed Explorers will assist you in your task. The lives of the Lehigh River watershed residents and visitors can be positively improved depending on your observations and contributions. So, take your time, review the rich selection of materials you collect along the way, and answer each question proposed by the Watershed Explorers with the best of your abilities. Can't wait to get started? Contact me at junior@lehigh.edu
Okay, so should be
to find out how you can become a watershed.
All right, so just cutting the end of that short there. So that's kind of gives you an overview of Watershed Explorers, and then we had a successful desktop prototype with the students. However, it took minimum 50 minutes to complete, which is kind of long as we think about putting people into headsets. So what we've been doing since that study concluded is we've been developing 2 shorter thematic versions of Watershed Explorer, one that focuses on environmental issues and one on industrial history. And during this, instead of having multiple photospheres at each location to visit, there's one stop at, you have 6 or 7 locations in each of these activities, these explorations, and just one photosphere to explore, and still you have access to a lot of the media in the journals. So we're hoping things are moving along really well with this in terms of getting these versions done. I'm optimistic by the end of this calendar year, they should be ready to do pilot testing in the headsets, and then we'll be going out to, hopefully in 2024, some public outreach events to the public and gather some data on how people learn with these VR experiences. And a lot of these will take place at our partners, like the Lehigh Gap Nature Center at their facilities. All right, now finally, what I'm going to do is show you a video of flood adventures. And this is a game-based learning experience. It's going to go into this house, but the reason what Flood Adventures does, it's a game where you learn about flood preparedness. And as you know, we have enhanced hydrologic cycle.
And now for our main story tonight, how flooding can impact your home.
So yeah, so this is some a video of some cutscenes going on in this experience. Anyway, we know from the enhanced hydrologic cycle due to climate change is that flooding's been becoming a major problem, not just locally here in the Lehigh Valley or New York or regionally, but people die every time there's a flood event anywhere in the world. And most people don't know how to prepare for a flood, and that's what this game is involved. So what happens is when you get into the house, you're given this about 1.5 minute about introduction video about what's causing flooding, and then you are guided through a tutorial that you're seeing now on how to pick up objects. I mean, you saw that earlier, there was the sparkles and stuff, and then there's this inventory system. So so you can pick up objects in the house. You can get up to 4 objects into this inventory system, but if you pick up like that backpack, it expands to 6 items, and you have basically 3 minutes. As an alarm goes off, you've got 3 minutes to get all the stuff in your house that's important, get it to your car, and get out because of the emergency. But if you pick something up like this jug of water that weighs 20 pounds, it's going to slow your movement, and then you can't move as fast into the experience. You're going to pick up the canned food here, and then once you get this, you go to the garage, find your car, put it into the car. And when the 3 minutes are up, you drive away. And then you get a star level, and it tells you how many important, useful, optional items you have. And then you get a breakdown of why you got the 1 star. And then you find out that this was a dream. Maybe I should prepare for a flood. And then there's a brief video that will show up again for about a minute that kind of talks to you about the importance of preparing a flood kit. And then there's this emergency checklist you see on the left, and you're kind of guided to prepare your flood emergency kit by picking up the items, putting them into the inventory, and getting this into a box in the garage. The other thing that I will say is it's designed so that we want people to fail the first run so that they get just 1 star or 2 stars. And then when they have their flood kit done, then they do another run, and they should be getting 4 or 5 stars because they have everything now by their car ready to go. So I'm going to pause this rest of this video right here. And then I just want to kind of share you the type of data that we get when we do usability studies. And this was the first full prototype of this game. And this was, I think this data was gathered last December. But we use Likert item scales, 1 to 5 ratings from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And these are things that we're interested in finding out as well. Did they understand the text? Were the images, captions interesting? Was the narration clear? Did the tutorial help them to learn the game? Did they feel overwhelmed? Did they learn things they did not know? Did they like using the game? Did they find it easy to use? But things about the graphic quality. And so this was very favorable for us. And where we are right now with Flood Adventures is, I believe it's all done. Cross my fingers when I meet with my students on Friday that my student group from start to finish, and then we'll do a testing session, and then if we're feeling good about it, we'll we have our data collection metrics. We're actually going to gather some learner analytic data on how people play the game, and so we've got to get that coded into the game, and our data measures for research. And then we'll be also paralleling to that, start working on a programmed version for a headset. And with that, I'll stop here and take questions, comments, discussions. If you're interested in knowing more, this website will get you into our Eli research site, where we have a list of publications, conference papers. There's some videos there. And we also, if you Google Lehigh River on YouTube, you should be able to. We have a YouTube channel that has a bunch of videos also from the project. So thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Bodzin. Thinking about it, I feel like there's a variety of different types of applications that somebody could develop in this. But I think you had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that some of these take quite a while to develop. Not only just structurally from the programming and the engineering of creating a house, but having to go out to various locations and photograph the various photospheres and things like that. So I guess one of my initial questions is what, for the first program that you did, the one with the Lehigh Valley Gap project, what was the time frame from make the agreement with the organization to finish product, and what was kind of the sequence of events to actually produce that and prepare that for use to the public?
Good question. So I think we started our initial conversations around 2018 when we started. So our group's been working since 2018, and we actually started with the Lehigh Gap Nature Center. Just because I'm very familiar with the Lehigh Gap Nature Center. I teach an environmental education course at Lehigh, and we do a field trip on a Saturday there. And I'm aware of all the outreach and public programs that they do. And what we thought about at the time when I was talking with them, this idea of, well, one of the problems I have with field trips is sometimes students can't make a Saturday field trip for athletics, and you can't really make up a field trip for a class. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we created a virtual field trip to kind of get the content there, so if people miss the field trip, they could get there, but at the same time, we could use this as sort of a pre-field trip experience so that we could focus on more important things actually on the site. And that was kind of one of the goals from my end at Lehigh when I started partnering with the Lehigh Gap Nature Center. And from the Lehigh Gap Nature Center point of view is they're interested in doing things with more immersive learning to enhance their existing programs that they have with public outreach and public programs, in addition to work that they do with schools. And with all this stuff, if you notice the title, it says non-formal education. Right now, in fact, our very first study we ever did, I'm going to diverge here a second, was in a school in the Building 21 High School in Allentown. It was our very first study. We did a headset implementation with a prototype that was buggy as all can be. And we found out that the kids were so highly engaged and immersed. They had a flow state. Nothing else mattered to them. There was little distractions. And I'd been conducting research with another project in the school for about 3-4 years and realized, wow, these kids, I've never seen them so engaged in learning. And knowing that non-formal educators like the Lehigh Gap Nature go out to schools in Allentown and other places, this is a way of, I think, in the near future, bringing VR learning experiences to schools, or again, when schools go out to nature centers for field trips, this is something that they could do at a nature center too, to enhance the learning experience. Because schools, K-12 schools, I would say 99.99% of them, there's exceptions, but they're not equipped to have VR learning experience. You have to have training, you have to have dedicated space, there's material and equipment management, and it's just not practical. So I think in terms of trying to level the playing field to get kids more engaged in schools, they could work with non-formal educators. And so we had these conversations, the staff at the Lehigh Gap Nature Center and our group, and we kind of bought into this idea and said, well, let's try it and do it. And so that was what promoted, I guess, the development of this first experience. And we've done some other ones. Like I said, they're involved with all the other projects. We have another game that's almost finished too. It's a true game. It's never going to be in a headset because it's too long. It's called The Mystery of the Lehigh Gap, too, where you play a series of mini games to understand why the Lehigh Gap was there and importance of mining ore and firing up a furnace to get to 2,700 degrees to make a zinc ingot, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, fascinating.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions from the audience. Michael is our first question. Has there been any consideration given to developing motion controls for these experiences to increase immersion, making them potentially more intuitive and allowing for more intuitive interaction with the environment?
Yes. So we've just begun thinking about that with a project that we just started, which is a web. It's not web. It's a GIS project, where we're taking the idea is to do like a water quality simulation, where you would go to locations on the river and do a virtual macroinvertebrate survey by using your hands, natural hands and controllers to like pick up nets and do a taxonomic survey with macroinvertebrates. Now we've just started this, and it took us about 6 months just to work with the ArcGIS SDK from Esri to get it to work with Unity. It wasn't easy. So we're just kind of looking at the interfaces. And if you're familiar with Unity and Meta, they've just come out with recently some different types of embedded platforms and APIs to make natural motion with your hands more user-friendly for development. So we just started with this, exploring this for the hands in this other project right now. But the ones that I showed you today, that probably won't be used. It may with the flood adventures. It is possible with the flood adventures we might be using this. One of the difficulty is too, with why things take so long, is when we start these projects. 3 years into these projects, the technology, the development technology changes. And then, what we used to spend a long time doing is now much more easy to do. And so, like I said, I was just reading something coming out of the Meta conference that was a few weeks ago. And there's all kinds of new things that they're working at to make development much easier with once their Oculus, the Meta 3 headsets come out.
Well, I can imagine too that the amount of resources that it takes for those programming would change. I mean, you and your team of students and colleagues says, there's maybe 10 to 15 of you, as opposed to Meta, which has hundreds, not thousands of employees that are working on that same topic. So just the physical human resource is also potentially a limitation.
Yeah. Right. And so again, and that's a big point there, Bryce, too, because what we do too is, we're as university faculty, we're also here to provide our students with education and training, right? So they're learning too. It's not like the students come in, they're experts. They have to learn how to use Unity. So they have to go through tutorials that we provide to learn the interface and how to move around with this.
So Sandra has a question. Would different towns and cities possibly benefit from this application as an education tool for those potentially at risk for weather disaster conditions? So my immediate thought about this is, people living in the South that are at hurricane risk, or in the Midwest that are in tornado risk. Or is there capacity and application for these systems to allow people to be safer?
Yes, and I think it's really, it's a way of understanding what to do to be safe during a natural disaster. I think in general, most people don't know how to be safe in a natural disaster. When we started working on the flood adventures, our main partner in that is the Nurture Nature Center that really focuses on community outreach and understanding for flood preventiveness, and no one in our group had ever made a flood kit before. We don't have one in our. I hate to admit this now, even just I still don't have a flood kit, built in my house ready to go, which is bad to admit. But yeah, like I said, flooding is going to occur in most locations. I mean, we saw this summer, even in desert environments, they got flooded out in some places, and there was severe damage and people lost lives. And so, for us, once we start doing the research, because we're really interested, is how does this activity, this learning activity, this immersive activity that's very game-based, help you to learn how to be prepared for floods. And if we find in our research that this is effective, then we know if we wanted to develop something for another geographic region, or for other geographic regions, say on tsunami preparedness or earthquake preparedness, you can do such a thing. So there are other applications, but we're at the point with the research right now is there have not been many studies that have shown how does immersive learning for the public with this technology, how do people learn? Are they engaged, and do they actually learn? And there's issues that you have to deal with when you do design. You have to worry about a term we call cognitive load, because sometimes in these experiences, there's so much going on. You have to understand the interface. You have to know how to move. And it's really important to design things to try to reduce that cognitive load for learners, or the users or players, so that they're really focused on the content and the experience that you want them to, and not being distracted by other things in the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some other questions from Michael. Have users of the experience expressed a preference for the immersive VR versus a more traditional method? And then you mentioned kind of the time and fatigue, 50 minutes for the one program being too long. So has there been any research in, what is a preferable amount of time for someone to be in one of these environments? And is it the physical fatigue of wearing the headset? Is it the cognitive fatigue of being in an environment that you're not physically in? Like, what are some of maybe the drawbacks and limitations of someone being in those environments?
That's an excellent question. So what we're trying to do with our activities, again, we're designing this for all people in the general public to use, right? Ultimately, we want to have a headset version of these experiences. We want to have a web-based version that people can use. And also, if somebody wants to download a massive file and run it on their computer, they can do that too. And there is a percentage of people, and it's small, and it's small. Like in our very first study of the headset study I talked about at that high school, I think it was about 2 out of 70 students couldn't complete it was a 12-minute experience because they got motion sickness. And some people just can't do it. Some people are just physically unable to put a headset on, just because they might have some type of disability, or some way of, there's just headsets on them just kind of aren't for them. They just can't handle a headset covering their face. And if you're doing this for the first time, especially, people, I think, after 20 minutes have pretty much had enough of it too, because it does weigh on your face. It's something you're not used to. There are things that you can get to make them more comfortable. I've heard from the reviews that the new Meta Quest 3 headsets are more comfortable than the Meta 2 headsets that are currently out on the market. So I think that's, again, when we think about that, for us as designers, is we really want these experiences, when it gets to the headset, we want people to have an immersive experience that they're going to enjoy. We don't want it to be excessively long, 15, 20 minutes. And right now we're kind of thinking about what's the approach now after with these, with Watershed Explorers, these shorter versions. Once we're almost there too, of testing it from start to finish in the headset, is how long is it going to take? And then some of the data gathering measures we want to know is, does this help people understand sort of the spatial nature of the locations in the watershed? So we've created, actually in Unity for this, a drop-down map task where there's these 9 locations, and there's a drop-down, and you have to label the locations by their place names. And we want to do this as a pre and post. And so for us, we have to think, well, do we do this in the headset as a pre-post data collection measure, or do we do this on paper and outside of the headset? And so we have to kind of figure out how much longer that task will take, because we don't want to keep people in the headsets for extensively long periods of time.
So kind of a follow-up question that I have to that. I'm thinking back to Google's attempt at augmented reality a few years ago with what they did with the Google Glass. Do you think that, based on your research and maybe some of the functionality of what you're doing, do you feel like there's capacities to do a similar type of program in augmented reality? So I think of like walking the DNL trail, like the first presentation. If I had a light enough piece of equipment that I could wear and get audio cues, could I walk the DNL trail potentially and have Brownie give me, tidbits of information about the history of it? Do you think that there's potentially capacity for something like that?
Oh, the answer is absolutely yes. And this is kind of what Meta is banking on right now with their latest release with their headset and their development platforms that have just got released the past. They're in some are still in beta and trial right now, but that's the direction they want to move into. It's called MR, mixed reality. So Meta's new Oculus 3, it's Meta Quest headset, I think is the proper term. I always mix up Oculus and Meta these days. But it's got capacities for mixed reality as sort of a native built-in platform. And so they're banking on this, and they actually came out with a set of glasses that I heard has really nice spatial audio and a built-in AI so that it can visually see things as you wear these glasses in your environment and will be able to give you information about these things. And this holds just amazing potential in the future for people with different learning disabilities, especially people with visual impairments. So yeah, this is what I think in 3 years from now, you'll probably see a lot more of these types of experiences out there.
So we have just a few minutes remaining. So for anybody still in the audience who has questions, feel free to submit them now. We can get to maybe 1 or 2 more of them before we wrap up for the day. So with the work that you've done, Dr. Bodzin, have there been any other colleagues within Lehigh beyond the ones that you've collaborated with already, or any other outside organizations that you haven't mentioned that have inquired about maybe doing a project with you or seeing if there's capacity to do something in some of the fields that maybe they're specifying?
Not specifically. It's funny. There's been a movement at Lehigh. We just had last month, what they call these things, sort of a work session for new initiatives at Lehigh. And there's some movement from faculty in the computer science department, and also some faculty there, and also in the College of Health and in our College of Education to do some virtual reality for health education and focusing with students with disabilities. But again, to do this, and I'll be frank with you, when we started this, we didn't know anything. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a computer scientist. We all were self-taught, self-learned, and to do stuff with partnerships, I think is for Lehigh probably the future. Because like I said, if you want things done and done quickly, you need to partner with companies to make things happen. But no, personally, no one has personally. No, that's not true. We've had a few inquiries over the past years of folks. Actually, some alums from Lehigh have come and met with us, or people have reached out. But the other thing too, with people from companies, it's also could be a challenge for researchers, academics like myself, because we're on a different timeline than somebody who is at a company, wants to develop a software application and get it to market as quick as possible. And usually they want to make money off it, right? You're investing a lot of money and paying people, where we don't have that type of we don't have that infrastructure at Lehigh. We're not a for-profit place. We're doing this for, because we think it's interesting, right? And we also believe that people will learn with this, but we're very interested also in the research and want to contribute to the knowledge base with the immersive learning research, which is a fairly new field that we're engaged with.
Wonderful.
But the comment to you, if anybody's out there and you want to have a business, you're interested in a partnership, by all means, I'm open for that discussion. I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a great note to kind of wrap things up on, because we are right out about time. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Bodzin, for presenting on a really fascinating topic and some really interesting research. Just so everyone is aware that the presentation was recorded and it will be posted to the Alumni Relations YouTube page coming the next week or two. So if you found it interesting, or you have colleagues or other alums that you feel like may benefit or be interested in the topic, then please feel free to share it out. As well, if there is anybody who is interested in the work that Dr. Bodzin is doing and would like to connect further and to dive deeper into this topic, then please feel free to reach out to us, and we would be happy to put you into connection. So with that, thank you, Dr. Bodzin. Thank you to our attendees and our audience, and we will see you guys for the next one. Have a wonderful day.